Alright, so this video is a little bit late, but I was out of the country on vacation. Anyway, I'm going to do a little recap on Houston and give my predictions for what I think is going to happen in Anaheim 2. So, first of all, Jason Anderson. He rode amazing. He went out, he looked dominant in both his heat race and in the main. He was incredibly smooth. I think he actually was faster than what he showed. He went out and passed people consistently from like 4th place where he started in the main up until he got into 2nd. Once he got into 2nd, he gained 1 second on the leader per lap for like 3 laps in a row. After that, he easily passed Roczen. He got up into the front, he pulled away, got himself a nice 3-second gap, and from there he just kind of eased off and basically rode off into the sunset. So I think he actually could have went harder for longer, but he didn't need to, so he kind of slowed it down, made sure he was good and consistent, and did exactly what he needed to do to get the win. I think that kind of shows some maturity as a rider. You know, he's been in the premier class for a while now, for a few years, and he's finally starting to get it to come together. So this year, he's looking pretty good, and I'm predicting another 1st place finish out of Jason Anderson this next week. Roczen, he looked pretty good, and because he looked pretty good, he got 2nd place in Houston. So I'm predicting that he's also going to get a 2nd place finish in Anaheim too. He looked pretty good. Like I said, he's not quite what he was, and I think it might take quite a few races to get back to the level he was. We might not even see it this year. I think he will eventually get there, but I think that arm is still giving him trouble. I know he complained about arm pump, and when it came right down to it, he really didn't put up much fight against Anderson. And even though he didn't put up much good fight against Anderson, considering Tomac and Muskin were both out, you know, he still had a pretty good finish. 2nd place is not bad at all. And considering those guys were out, he didn't have the competition he would have, but I still think he's a top 5 rider. Again, next week I'm predicting a 2nd place for him. He was still faster than most everybody else that was out there, and I think it's just going to take a while for him to get his form back and for him to be able to put up consistent podium finishes. For number 3 this week, I'm going out on a little bit of a limb, and I'm going with my boy Pike. I love Pike. I've loved Pike ever since the Freesey incident a few years ago. Was it 2 years ago? I like his aggressiveness. I like that he's kind of an underdog, and he goes out there and he just gives it all he's got. He's on a new ride this year, and I'm thinking he's going to be on the podium this next week. He's looked good. He's looked consistent. He's looked fast. And I think it comes together for him this week. I'm predicting a 3rd place finish in Houston. Not Houston. We just did Houston. Anyway, I'm picking a 3rd place in Anaheim 2 and put him up on the podium. At number 4, I'm predicting Barcia to come in 4th place, Anaheim 2. He rode well. Again, he rode well enough to be on the podium in Houston. And I think Barcia is another rider that has matured. I think right now he's riding for points. I don't think he's riding quite as aggressive as he was, but I think that's good because I think it's making him consistent and he's finishing well. But I think because of his ride situation right now, he's just a fill-in rider, and I think if he had that full ride, you know, I think if he had that contract locked down, he'd be riding a little more aggressive. But I think as things are right now, he's happy with these podium finishes. He's happy with the points that he's getting. He's happy where he's sitting. And I think it's going to pay off for him down the road because I think he's going to end up getting that long-term contract. So, yeah, I mean, you can't really knock the guy too much. He fought it out with Seeley to lock down that 3rd place, and he's been riding great. So I'm predicting Barcia. You know, slightly off the podium, slightly a little slower, but 4th place is nothing. It's not bad. So I'm predicting a 4th place for Barcia this week. And for 5th place, I'm picking Seeley. Seeley's been riding consistent. He hasn't had Anderson take him out this year, so that's a good thing. I don't know if they're rivalry has kind of settled down a little bit, or I don't know if Anderson has just been out front and hasn't really had to deal with him, so he hasn't been running into him, or what. I don't know. But Seeley's been consistent. I think he's a real consistent 5th place finisher. I think that's going to be about where he finishes this year, and that's where I see him finishing in Anaheim too. Now, if I could talk about Tomac and Musquin for a second, I can't include them in my top 5 list for this week because who knows if they're going to race. Tomac's got that shoulder hurt. Musquin got the shoulder hurt. And I don't know what's going to happen with these guys. I do believe that if Tomac actually races, I can see him finishing anywhere from 2nd place, because I don't think he's going to come out and beat Anderson. I can see him finishing anywhere from 2nd place to about 4th place. And if Musquin races, now even if healthy, I believe Musquin would have a real hard time with this track. And I'll show the track map. Now there's a corner that's got a little bit of speed coming out of it that leads into a long whoop section. And I see Musquin struggling with this whoop section because that's what he injured himself last week in one of those faster whoop sections, trying to jump the whoops and not skimming them like everybody else and getting himself hurt. And even before he got himself hurt, he was back in the pack a little ways. He was actually struggling. So this looks like another track to me where Musquin would struggle. Even if healthy, I don't see him finishing on the podium. So I'm going to go with a 4th through 6th place finish for Musquin if he rides. Anyway, guys, those are my predictions and a little bit of recap. This is my Supercross Anaheim 2 preview. I'll catch you guys next time.